Come join me in my creative space where we can paint, learn, and have a few laughs. So get comfy and let's get started. Hi everybody, Kat here. Thanks for joining me today. We will be painting some easy roses today. And I have a little trick to show you that helped me a lot when I was first learning how to do them. And I think it might help someone out there. So let's get started. The first thing I have is my Fabriano Artistico. So this is cotton paper, and it does work better on cotton paper. There's no question, because when we apply the color, it will just disperse it, and it tends to look very beautiful. I really want to apologize for the focusing issues you're about to be subjected to. It stops around the 9-minute mark, and I think it's a pretty decent video, so please hang in there and enjoy. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to spray in 2 spots. I'm going to paint 2 roses, because this is just for practice. They say to always work in odd numbers, not even, but I just want to concentrate on 2, so the video is not too long. So I'm going to spray around where I'm going to put my 2 roses. And if your paper starts to bulge, spray the back all over, and you can stick it down comme ça. It's not a big deal how much is wet and how much isn't, because the paint is going to be nice and juicy. So next I take I'll take a nice soft brush. It's nice and juicy here. Takes a lot of water, and I'm going to take a mix of, I have 2 mixes here. I have Paranon Orange with some Quin Magenta, and then I have some Paranon Orange with some Indian Yellow. And this is just a very light wash that I want on here. Very light wash, and even though it doesn't look so light, it will dry lighter. And don't worry if you have some white space, that's okay too. And it's always a little bit darker in the middle of a rose, so you can get away with putting some more paint there. And if you want it to be a little pinkier, you just drop in a little bit more magenta. It's really up to you what colors you'd like this to have. Now you see I'm starting to get a puddle there. I will dry my brush with a towel, and I'm going to just pick that up and see how this works. This is going to be wet for quite some time. I'm not worried about it. And now I'm going to do the more kind of orangey, peachy, pinky tone. So I'll start with the orange. And I'm just dabbing in the color because I do want a little bit of white space. Putting in a bit of yellow, just a bit. And don't worry if it's too much, you just pick it up. Take it up again. So both of these colors are going to be different versions of like one's going to be more salmony peachy, and the other one's going to be more of a traditional peach color. So this one worked out a teeny bit better simply because it didn't have a puddle. So I'm going to spray the edges because I want those edges to fan out. See, I have a line there. There we go. Then you take your brush and just dab the edges and draw the paint towards the edge. My brush is a little too wet, too dry. There we go. And you can just pull that paint towards you. And I'm quite like the shape of that, so I'm going to leave it. This one I'm going to work on a teeny bit longer. There we go. Because I softened up that puddle. You see it's bulging here, the paper, so it's causing the paint to fall into this kind of valley here. So that's why I'm trying to fix that. And once you're done this part, you are going to let it dry or go and dry it with a dryer. Very gently though, because you don't want to lose those beautiful little blooms and things that you have. Okay, I'm back. Everything is dry. Now we will take a small brush. This is a size 2. So the importance of that is it won't hold a ton of water, and it has a nice sharp point. You can decide where you would like the center of your flower to be. If you have a vision, work with it. If you don't, just start in the center. So I'm dampening my brush, and for this one I'm going to use the same color that we had here. And with a very, very, very light touch, I hope you can see this, I've decided that this is going to be my center right here. So I'm just putting in a dot here, and then I'm going to swirl around and swirl like this and touch and swirl again and touch, and then come around here and swirl. Very thin lines. You don't need this to be that visible, only to you. I'm doing it a little darker than I actually have to because I want you to be able to see it. So as long as you can see your work, you can go as light as you like. Just make sure your brush is damp. And do petals that aren't even. That is to say they can all be roughly a similar size, but make them a little bit wavy. So if you can get your lines even thinner than I have here, do that. I just have to get you to see what I'm doing. So they kind of overlap each other. So these two meet here, and this petal behind it starts behind this petal and this one. So this one I'm going to start in the middle to meet this one. So, and as I go, they're going to get a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And I'm also trying to pay attention to the paint around it. So I have more paint left here. So I'm going to start to build the petals more on this side and leave this part of the flower be. So with watercolor, there's always surprise, but with any painting, there can be nice little surprises because, whoops, just very light. There we go. And as I said, I think I'll do one more here. And I'm stopping one layer before the last set of leaves. Petals. So what I mean is this nice faint part is still going to be, there's still going to be petals there. So I'm going to carry on with this one, and then I will explain what these dark parts represent. So for this one, I'm going to use that pinky salmony color. I think that the center is more up at the top here for me. That's how I see it. So that's what I'm going with. So you can put your hand up as straight as you can. Maybe if I lift the board. So I'm doing like a triangular sort of shape. And then I'm doing another swirl and another one. And you can swirl all the way around because the center of a rose is quite tight. And it's very hard to decide where you see the petals are coming from because they're so tight together. So don't worry about if it doesn't really look like petals to you right now. Okay, so then we're going to make them smaller and start to, they're larger leaves, but now we're going to start kind of overlapping. So there's one big one here, and that covers this one and this one. So now this one I'm going to try to get it to reach to here. And I think I like that shape. I'm going to turn my work, and now I'm going to try this side and get it to go all wavy. So as long as you don't do it uniformly, as I say in every single one of my videos, if you do something, trying to find a scrap here. If you do a flower, let's say you have your center here, and you do it all uniform like this. It's a style, but it has certainly, you're going to achieve a different look. And it's not to say that it's not nice, like some people can make this beautiful, I'm sure, but this is more natural looking. So that's why I say try not to make them too uniform. So now I can see that the pink petals come down this way, not so much here. So I might put a little guy here, and then I will put one here. And it looks like the flower is opening up in this direction. And I think that last one is going to be here. And I'm going to leave it like that. If I want to add some later, I will. When we paint roses, part of the problem that I remember having, and I know a lot of people have it, these dark lines, while they represent this particular petal, say right here, the dark line is not the petal. It's actually the shadow on the petal beneath. So the light catches this petal, therefore it casts a shadow on this petal, and that's why that dark line is there. Often when we see this and we draw it out with pencil, it's very, very confusing because you're not sure if you're drawing the dark or if you're drawing the light. So this is the method I'm going to show you. I find it a lot easier and it's kind of pretty. So I start at the bottom with what I have here. I'm going to just dampen it. It's not sopping wet. It's just very small brush. And I think this petal is kind of a yellowy orangey color. So you're going to see me mixing different shades of all these colors because flowers with the light that's cast on them, they often have all different shades to them. So I take the belly of my brush and I soften it out. And I have a towel near me over here. You see my hand going over here. I'm drying off my brush so that, because I always have water somewhere here. So that gives this petal color. And this petal, the top of it is lighter. And that's where that line, you see the one that we painted, it's disappeared now. So it's the shadow caused from these two petals onto this one. I hope that makes sense. So now down here, I'm going to do the same thing. Just going to, whoops, that's a bit too much water. Dry that off. And I'm trying not to wet everything because it'll bleed into each other and I don't want that. So I'm going to turn my work. Always turn your work to make yourself comfortable. Your brush strokes will be a lot nicer to look at. So this has a little bit more pink in it, I find. So I'm going to add that to the yellow. Drop that in. Now don't forget, this is one easy way to paint a flower. It doesn't have to be the only way, but it is certainly a great way for you to start. And then when you get really comfortable doing this, you can add complementary colors to make shadows so that there's really some dark shadows in there. So it looks it looks a lot like there's a lot more contrast. These are very soft looking flowers. So there's a line here. I don't know if I painted it quite dark enough for you to see, but I will, when I paint the shadow cast, you'll see that line. Now I'm going to dry my brush off and just soften this out. If I put in some of that orangey color while it's wet, it'll disperse beautifully, but you have to be careful about how much you're putting in because you don't want it to fill the entire petal. And I always find it nice to put a cooler color right at the edges, because cool colors make things go back. They recess things, and warm colors make things come forward. So I always find in a shadow it's nice to have that. And don't forget, we're getting closer to the middle of the flower, and since the petals are closer together, the flower looks darker there. Less light is able to touch those petals. I'm going in with a bit more of the pink because pink is cooler than this orangey color. You don't have to put it everywhere. You just dab the edges, and then we're going to use the brush. You rinse it and then you blot it off, and then you let this spread out. And you do this all the way around. When you get to the center, you still want to leave some light between your darks so that you can tell one from the other. If you cover everything, if you have to have light to see the dark. It's like if you get up in the nighttime and you've been up for a while and the lights go out, you can't see your hand right in front of your face because there's no light. So it's the same with here. Even though it's darker in the center of the flower, you still need the light to be able to see that. Now, if you do this in a larger painting, it can be a lot of fun because you can use a larger brush. I can do this painting with a brush about this size, or my Princeton that has a beautiful point. It's an Aqua Elite. I said it was a Neptune the other day. It's not. It's an Aqua Elite, and it's a size 6, and it's called a long round, and I love it for this kind of work. Now I'm going around these edges very scarcely with the pink. You do not have to use a lot of it. This one's still wet, so it'll disperse nicely. I don't want to lose that light on that petal, because as small as it is, it's quite important. So the darks are the cast shadows, not the actual petal. So now that I say that, you may be wondering, well, this has a line around it. And so for my final petals, I'm going to take my larger brush. This one doesn't have a size on it, and someone commented and asked me what I was using. It's these brushes I got from Desert. It's a Canadian online. It's not online. I can go to the store downtown. It's Canadian, and it's an art supply store. So I got that online. They were made in China. They're sable, I believe. And I just thought I'd try them out. They look kind of fun. It looks like a bamboo branch. So this has a line, and I'm going to put a very vague petal right here. Very watery. I'm going to start coming around here. And I am not going to finish this petal. It's going to finish itself. So like that. So then this petal casts that shadow. And then it's just going to fade off. This one as well, but I'm going to put a leaf up here. So that is going to take care of that one. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to put just a very delicate kind of, I think I'll do it more yellowy. You have to be careful with yellow. Yellow is a very strong color. So I'm going to wet this first, actually. Especially the Indian yellow. It's beautiful. It's a nice warm yellow, but it is very strong. A little bit goes a long way. So I'm going to leave this alone. I tend to fiddle. I'm going to work on this one. I'm going to do the same thing. I think when you're watching it, I will speed it up, not to bore you, and I will slow it down when I have something I think that you'd like to hear me say. This edge I have to work on a little bit. I lost a bit of the light, and I'm going to see if I can get some of it back using this little guy. So right here I feel like I've lost the light. And I'm just going to scrape it back. Just scrub a little bit gently. And then you get your light back. I just felt that I had lost it a little bit. I'm going to put some leaves on. This one too. I want to put some leaves on, and then wherever I feel like there's a hard edge, I will put another petal behind. For the leaves, I am going to use Paul Rubens Sugar's Green. That's my fave. I have favorite colors from different companies. So I'm planning to do a leaf right here. I want to show the viewer that there is a petal here. Rose leaves are kind of jaggedy. Add a bit of water just for variation in the color. I'm going to get a bloom there because I added a lot of water. This brush holds a ton of water. So I'm going to sop it up, and I'll add more paint because I really added too much water. It's kind of fun when I make some mistakes, and then I can show you what I do to fix it. Okay, so that's one leaf. I'm going to take my handy dandy gift card. So what I do, I hope you can see that, is I cut different edges on it. So that's a sharp edge, that's a tiny angle. Believe it or not, there's a tiny angle there for when I do tiny trees or twigs. And then there's this one, that's wider. So I'm going to use the sharp edge. And I'm going to put the veins in. So I think I'm going to have this leaf looking kind of just kind of flat out. Now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to put a leaf here, and I think I'm going to put one down here. So I'm going to turn my work. Sorry, I lost my brush. My goodness. I'm going to put a small leaf here, roughly the same shape. Sometimes you don't know what shape it'll be until you do it. So I want to cover this outline because the petal doesn't have an outline. There we go. We put that outline there so we would know that there's a petal there. So I'm doing another jagged rose leaf. If there's white in there, that's perfect. You can make these dreamy and smear them. I want to show you, I'll do that with this one. And just try to put it a little bit darker where it meets the flower, just very gently, because the flower's casting, it's coming from underneath the shadow, underneath the flower. So the vein, try to follow the tip of the leaf and follow your curve. So I'm going to come out like that. It's not perfect, but, and then it's going to show when you put your veins on what direction the leaf is sort of sitting in. So again, I'm going to put some leaves on. I would like to do it different, but I'm afraid it'll run into this one. So I'll do it around the same, so just so I can show you what your options are. I'll put one out here. So there's one. And I'm just going to pull out some of those sharp edges. And don't stress over the veins. Really don't. Look how pretty they look. When you have it at this stage, it's sort of still glistening, but it's not dripping. Just tickle the leaf here and there. Don't tickle it everywhere. And you can bring down some water. It kind of gives it like a dreamy look. And it also, if you play your cards right, it'll outline another petal. And if there's not quite enough, you just add a tiny bit more paint into your water. But mostly try to get it to come from the leaf that you just painted. Maybe I'll put one right here. The contrast between the dark leaves and the flowers, just beautiful. There. And again, just drop a bit of water here. Just trying to coax that paint out a bit. You don't lose your leaf. It just sort of starts to weep a little bit. So if you do a whole page of these, you can make a beautiful loose bouquet, but it's not entirely loose. So if you're not getting the dripping you want, you just poke your tip of your brush in the paint and let it come down. Comme ça. So up here, I wanted to show you what to do with these edges. So we're going to make all the petals finish like that one. So this color, I think I've lost this color a little bit over here. Needs a lot of water. And just going to put a tiny little petal here. And we're going to let it drift off. Just wet your brush and tickle the edge until it disappears into almost nothing. And right at that join where it meets the other petal, you're going to add a little bit of thicker paint on the tip of your brush. Not thick, but thicker and pinkier. You're going to dab that in there. So now you no longer have an edge around this, and you don't have an edge around this petal. It's just going to fade off. So we're going to do this one as well. So I think I might make this a nice big one. A nice big floppy one right from here, because there's still a line here. Come from here and around to this one. Make sure the bulk of your color ends up near that line. Rinse your brush, dab it off, and then just tickle this edge till it fades out into nothing. And right there in the center, we're going to add a bit of thicker paint. So we get rid of this line, you see. It looks more like a shadow than it does an outline. And soften that out. There's a little bit there still. It wasn't dark enough, that's all. It'll be nice. Let it fade off. And we're going to go in with more concentrate right around that line. So it doesn't have any more outlines showing. Just this one here, and I can put another leaf there, I think. And I might put a leaf right here. Okay, I'm back. As you can see, I continued to paint a little bit. I put a smaller one here, and I made a suggestion of a couple here in the background, and you can fill this page that exact same way. You can make it as loose as you want or as tight as you want. I just wanted to show you my method of painting roses, I think it will help you learn how to paint them a little easier than just doing those typical C shapes that you're taught to do. This way you know what those darks mean, that they're shadows. And I think it might help. And if it does, and you give it a try and you like it, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. It really makes a difference to the channel if you interact. And so if you would like to leave a comment, feel free and don't be shy. I love hearing from you. So I hope you have a lovely day. Happy watercoloring. Bye-bye.